What if the biggest lie ever told wasn't buried in a secret file, but broadcast in plain sight, repeated by every trusted voice, right up until the moment a single photograph proved it all wrong? For months, we've been told a story, a neat and tidy narrative about an interstellar visitor named 3I Atlas. It's an object from another star system, a cosmic tourist racing through our neighborhood at speeds that defy easy comprehension. The story we were fed, the one that appeared on every astronomy blog, every news report, and even within the hallowed halls of our most respected scientific institutions, was simple. On the morning of October 29, 2025, at precisely 11:36 Universal Time, this object would reach perihelion, its closest, most intimate approach to our Sun. And at that exact moment, the most critical window for observation, it would be perfectly hidden. A solar conjunction, they called it. A convenient cosmic blackout curtain drawn at the most dramatic moment of the play. We were told not to bother looking. We were assured that every telescope on Earth, from the billion-dollar behemoths on mountaintops to the humble instruments in suburban backyards, would see nothing but the blinding glare of our own star. The message was clear: trust us. We'll watch from our privileged vantage points in space, and we'll tell you what happened after the fact. But trust is a fragile thing, and it requires honesty. And 4 days ago, that trust was shattered. Someone decided not to take their word for it. Someone decided to look anyway. An amateur astronomy group, posting under the simple, defiant name Earth Exists, pointed their equipment at the daytime sky. What they captured and published wasn't a theory or a wild speculation. It was evidence, a time-stamped, coordinate-verified, irrefutable photograph. And in that image, clear as day, was 3I Atlas. But it wasn't disappearing behind the sun. It wasn't obscured. It was sitting right next to it, a measurable, observable distance away. The photograph is a masterpiece of damning simplicity. On the left, the overwhelming brilliance of our sun. In the center, the faint but distinct pinpoint of 3I Atlas. And for context, for undeniable proof of position, the bright star Spica and the planet Venus hang in the frame like celestial witnesses. Let that sink in. The object they swore would be invisible was photographed in broad daylight, sharing the sky with the very star that was supposed to be hiding it. This isn't a minor error. This isn't a slight miscalculation of a decimal point in a complex orbital equation. This is the difference between night and day, between visible and invisible, between truth and a carefully constructed fiction. This brings us to a chilling crossroads, a fundamental question about the nature of knowledge and authority. We are left with only two possible conclusions, and both are terrifying. The first possibility is catastrophic incompetence, that every major astronomical institution on the planet, NASA, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the European Space Agency, every university with a respected astrophysics department, simultaneously made the exact same monumental error in basic orbital mechanics. An error so profound they couldn't correctly predict whether an object would be in front of or next to the sun. If that's the case, it calls into question the very foundation of our trust in scientific authority. If they can get something this simple, this fundamental, this catastrophically wrong, what else are they wrong about? What other certainties are built on a foundation of flawed calculations? The alternative, however, is far more disturbing. The second possibility is that the calculations were never wrong, that the institutions knew all along the object would be visible. They knew, and they chose to tell us the opposite. They chose to lie. And if they lied, we have to ask the most important question of all. Why? Why would they want the world looking the other way at the most critical moment of this object's journey? What could possibly happen during that perihelion passage that they so desperately wanted to witness without 8 billion pairs of eyes looking over their shoulder? The lie they told us wasn't just about an object in the sky. It was a test of our curiosity, our obedience, and our willingness to question the stories we are told. And thanks to a small group of amateur observers, it's a test the official story failed. Tomorrow, the truth comes out. And now, we know to watch. This story isn't just about astronomy. It's a profound lesson in critical thinking for our daily lives. How often do we accept an official story without question? Whether it's a news report, a corporate memo, a political statement, or even a piece of common social wisdom, we are constantly bombarded with narratives crafted by institutions of power. The story of 3I Atlas is a powerful reminder of the simple principle: trust, but verify. The amateur astronomers didn't have access to the Hubble Space Telescope or government funding. They had curiosity, a piece of equipment, and the courage to check for themselves. In your own life, what are the solar conjunctions you've been told not to look at? What are the accepted truths you've never questioned? Perhaps it's a belief about your own limitations, a story you were told about what you can or cannot achieve. Maybe it's a narrative about how the world works that serves to keep you passive and compliant. The lesson here is to be your own observer. Point your own telescope, your intellect, your research, your direct experience, at the things that matter. Don't let someone else's official story become the boundary of your reality. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary truths are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to simply look. The lie about the object's visibility was the single thread that, once pulled, began to unravel the entire tapestry of the official narrative. It was the crack in the dam, and now the evidence is pouring through. Long before the damning photograph of October 25th dedicated observers, the very amateurs we were all supposed to ignore, had been documenting a cascade of unsettling anomalies. This wasn't just a passive chunk of rock and ice coasting on gravity's rails. This object was behaving as if it had a mind of its own. For weeks, its trajectory has been deviating from the path predicted by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the gold standard for orbital mechanics. These aren't small deviations. The offsets reached 15.4 arc-minutes. To put that in perspective, the full moon is about 30 arc-minutes wide. Imagine looking at the moon and then seeing an object sitting halfway to its edge from where science swore it was supposed to be. In the world of celestial navigation, that is a colossal, glaring error. Something is pushing it. The data suggests a non-gravitational acceleration of approximately 3.95 kilometers per second. That's not a gentle nudge from solar wind or the puff of a few gas jets. That is a significant, sustained thrust, a deliberate change of course. Then there is the mystery of its brightness, a riddle that defies the simple laws of physics we learn in school. As an object gets closer to a light source, it should get brighter according to the inverse square law, a predictable mathematical relationship. 3I Atlas is indeed getting brighter as it approaches our sun, but it's brightening faster than the inverse square law predicts. Between October 23rd and 25th alone, its brightness increased by more than double what it should have. Yet paradoxically, it remains consistently 20 to 26% dimmer than the models expect for its size and distance. Think about what that means. It's like a car approaching you at night with its headlights on. The lights are getting brighter faster than they should, but the car itself is somehow darker than you'd expect. This isn't the behavior of a passive, inert object. It suggests a complex process, something more akin to a controlled emission or a dynamic surface that is changing its reflectivity. It's brightening on its own terms, not on physics terms. This cascade of physical anomalies is made all the more chilling when you place it on a timeline next to the strange, coordinated actions of our own institutions here on Earth. On October 1st, the United States government enters a funding lapse, and NASA, our most public-facing space agency, goes largely silent. Just as the most interesting interstellar guest in modern history arrives, the tour guide goes on an unannounced break. Coincidence? Maybe. But on October 16th, the SETI Institute, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence quietly revises its post-detection protocols for the first time in 15 years. These are the rules for what to do if we find them, or if they find us. After a decade and a half of silence, with this anomalous object racing towards us, they suddenly decide it's time to rewrite the rulebook, creating what many critics call a communication monopoly that centralizes the control of information. Why now? What were they anticipating? The pattern crystallizes on October 21st, the very same day the amateur observers first documented those significant trajectory deviations. On that day, the International Asteroid Warning Network, IAWN, adds 3I Atlas to its planetary defense threat list. This is unprecedented. This object poses zero collision risk to Earth. So why place it on a list designed for impact threats? It feels less like a warning and more like a designation, a way to officially flag this object for a higher level of scrutiny under a pretext that avoids the real questions. On that exact same day, IOWN announces a mandatory, 2-month-long training exercise for all member institutions, scheduled to begin just 4 weeks after perihelion. A training exercise for what? Processing data from a rogue comet, or preparing a coordinated response to something else entirely. When you see the object moving in ways it shouldn't, while on the ground institutions are moving in ways they haven't in decades, the word coincidence begins to feel naive. You start to see the shape of a coordinated response, a quiet, deliberate effort to manage a story they knew was far more complicated than they were letting on. They weren't just observing an object, they were preparing for an event. The lesson here is one of pattern recognition, a skill that is as crucial in our personal lives as it is in astrophysics. A single strange event can be dismissed. An anomaly is just a data point. But when multiple disconnected anomalies start to align, when the physical behavior of an object in space mirrors the strange institutional behavior on the ground, you are no longer looking at a collection of coincidences. You are looking at a pattern. In our own lives, we often ignore these patterns. We explain away a friend's strange behavior, a partner's inconsistent stories, a company's questionable ethics, treating each instance as an isolated event. This story teaches us to zoom out and connect the dots. Don't just look at the single event. Look at the timeline. Look for correlated actions. The universe, and the people in it, rarely operate in a vacuum. When things don't add up, it's often because there's a larger picture you're not seeing yet. The key is to keep gathering data points, to resist the urge to dismiss the strange, and to trust that feeling in your gut that tells you a pattern is emerging. Because patterns are the language of truth, and learning to read them is one of the most powerful tools we have. As if an anomalous interstellar visitor wasn't enough to occupy our minds, another quieter mystery has been unfolding in our own cosmic backyard, a story that might completely reframe what we think we know about our place in the universe. While all eyes were turning toward the approaching 3I Atlas, astronomers spotted something that shouldn't be there, an object designated 2025 PN7, orbiting in a strange, synchronized dance with Earth. It's not a true moon, gravitationally locked to us. It's a quasi-satellite, an object that orbits the Sun with a period so similar to ours that it appears to be our constant companion, a celestial shadow keeping pace with our planet. These orbital configurations are incredibly delicate and rare, usually lasting only a few centuries before the object is nudged away by the gravitational pull of other planets. But the strange thing about 2025 PN7 is its timing. It didn't drift into this orbit millions of years ago. The calculations show it arrived sometime in the 1960s, the exact same decade humanity first flung its own technology into deep space. Physicist Avi Loeb, a name that has become synonymous with challenging astronomical orthodoxy, saw these numbers and asked the question nobody else wanted to touch. Is this thing natural, or did we make it? He and his team began a meticulous work of cosmic detective work, tracing the trajectories of every major interplanetary mission launched during the Cold War's frantic space race. One mission kept surfacing in their calculations. Zond 1, a failed Soviet Venus probe launched in April 1964. The mission was a disaster. The spacecraft lost communication and drifted, dead and silent, into the void. But every mission has two parts: the probe and the rocket stage that gives it its final push. For Zond 1, this was the Block L upper stage, a massive cylinder of metal designed to fire once and then become another piece of forgotten space junk. The team's analysis was remarkable. When they traced 2025 PN7's orbit backward in time, it perfectly matched the trajectory and timing of the Zond 1 launch. Its brightness is consistent with a reflective metal cylinder of that size. Its orbital inclination is consistent with the launch window. Everything fits. On the surface, it seems like a closed case. Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the best, suggests we've simply found a piece of our own Cold War trash. Embarrassing, perhaps, but hardly mysterious. But there's a catch, a nagging detail that keeps this mystery from being comfortably solved. To know for sure, we need to perform spectroscopy on the object. We need to analyze the light reflecting off its surface to determine what it's made of. If the spectrum shows the signature of aluminum, titanium, and Soviet-era alloys, the case is closed. It's ours. But until that test is done, another, far more profound possibility remains on the table. What if the Zond 1 connection isn't the explanation, but the cover story? What if the object was already there, silently pacing our planet for centuries, and the Zond 1 mission just happened to be launched on a trajectory that passed eerily close to it? What if the reason the trajectory matches so well is because we, unknowingly, sent our probe directly towards a pre-existing watcher? This third option is the one that keeps astronomers up at night. The idea that we are not just finding our own trash, but that we might have stumbled upon someone else's listening post. An ancient probe, placed in a perfect, stable, long-term observational orbit, designed to watch the one planet in this system that showed the chemical potential for life. It would have watched the dinosaurs come and go. It would have watched humanity learn to harness fire, build cities, and split the atom. And just as we finally developed the technology to leave our cradle, just as we began flinging our own primitive probes into space, we finally developed telescopes sensitive enough to spot it. The timing isn't a coincidence of its arrival, it's a coincidence of our detection. This object, 2025 PN7, serves as a profound philosophical challenge. It forces us to confront our own cosmic narcissism. We tend to think of ourselves as the protagonists of the story. But what if we're not? What if we are simply the subjects of a very long, very patient study? The silence from the major observatories on the spectroscopy results is deafening. Why, months after its discovery, has no one published a definitive spectrum? Is it because the telescope time is booked? Or is it because someone already looked and didn't like what they found? The ghost in our orbit remains, its nature tantalizingly ambiguous, a constant reminder that while we look out at the mysteries of the universe, something might be looking right back. The lesson of 2025 PN7 is about the stories we tell ourselves to feel safe, and the danger of convenient explanations. It's easy and comfortable to label this object as our trash. It domesticates the unknown, making it familiar and non-threatening. We do this in our own lives all the time. When we encounter a complex problem or an uncomfortable truth, we often rush to the simplest explanation, the one that requires the least amount of change to our worldview. A partner's secrecy is just stress at work. A friend's betrayal was just a misunderstanding. We label things to dismiss them. This story urges us to resist that temptation. It asks us to live with the ambiguity, to embrace the uncomfortable questions, and to have the courage to wait for definitive evidence before closing the case. Do not be too quick to label the mysteries in your own life as space junk. Sometimes, they are clues to a much deeper, more transformative reality. The real growth happens not in finding easy answers, but in learning to sit with the profound and unsettling questions. In a world filled with shadows and whispers, where official stories crumble and Cold War ghosts haunt our orbit, a new kind of eye has opened, and it has opened in the most unlikely of places. Just 5 days before 3I Atlas is set to make its closest approach to our Sun, Avi Loeb, the same physicist challenging the narrative around 2025 PN7, announced something extraordinary. His initiative, the Galileo project, has just finished installing a state-of-the-art anomaly detection system on top of the sphere in Las Vegas. This isn't just a telescope on a roof. This is a statement. The sphere is a monument to spectacle and illusion, a $2.3 billion temple of entertainment designed to overwhelm the senses with carefully crafted realities. And now, sitting invisibly atop this cathedral of fantasy, is an array of scientific instruments pointed at the sky, dedicated to one thing: capturing the raw, unvarnished truth. This is not a single camera. It's a network of 3 identical observatories. The main array sits at the highest point of the sphere, while 2 others are positioned 10 kilometers away, forming a perfect triangle. This configuration allows for triangulation, the same principle our 2 eyes use to perceive depth. It's the only way to move beyond simply seeing a light in the sky and start gathering hard, metric data. With triangulation, the Galileo project can determine an object's precise 3-dimensional position, its exact velocity, and its real-time acceleration. They are not just looking for UAP. They are measuring them. The system is powered by sophisticated machine learning algorithms that have been trained to recognize and filter out everything mundane. They know the flight patterns of commercial jets, the transponder signals of helicopters, the predictable arcs of satellites, and the chaotic dance of birds. The system is designed to ignore the 99.9% of sky traffic that is known, and flag only the 0.1% that is truly anomalous, the objects that move in ways that defy our known physics and engineering. The choice of Las Vegas is a stroke of strategic genius. The city offers clear desert skies and sits in a valley surrounded by restricted military airspace, including the infamous Nellis Air Force Base and the Nevada Test and Training Range, historical hotspots for sightings of experimental and unexplainable aircraft. But the most important reason is one of legitimacy and independence. By partnering with a major private entity like Madison Square Garden Entertainment, the Galileo project has secured a platform that operates outside of government control. This is public science in its purest form. Unlike a military installation, the data collected from the sphere can't be retroactively classified. The findings will be published in peer-reviewed journals, the data made available for independent verification. It is a direct challenge to the culture of secrecy that has defined this topic for over 70 years. It's a system designed to make secrets impossible. Think about the timing of this announcement. It comes just as an interstellar object exhibiting non-gravitational acceleration is making its closest approach. It comes as institutions are putting out disinformation about its visibility. It comes as a potential alien probe sits unconfirmed in Earth orbit. The Sphere Observatory isn't just watching for random UAP. It's standing sentinel. It's waiting to see if anything comes from 3I Atlas. If the object were to release smaller probes during its perihelion passage, using the Sun's gravity to slingshot them towards the inner planets, this system is designed to be the welcoming committee. It represents a fundamental shift from passive listening, like SETI, to active, vigilant observation of our own airspace. The project is a bold declaration that if there is a truth to be found, we will no longer wait for the government to hand it to us. We will build our own instruments. We will gather our own data, and we will find it for ourselves. The sphere, once a symbol of manufactured reality, has now become our greatest tool for discovering what is real. The life lesson from this development is one of empowerment and taking control of your own perspective. For too long, humanity has been a passive recipient of information, waiting for authority figures to tell us what is true. The Galileo project is a metaphor for a new approach. If you feel that the official story in your career, your community, or your personal life is incomplete or misleading, don't just wait for someone else to correct it. Build your own observatory. This doesn't mean building a physical instrument. It means creating your own systems for gathering information and verifying facts. It means cultivating a network of trusted, independent sources. It means learning new skills so you can analyze data for yourself. It means having the courage to create your own triangulation by looking at a problem from multiple, diverse perspectives. We live in an age where the tools to seek truth are more accessible than ever before. The story of the Sphere Observatory is a call to action. Stop being a spectator in the theater of information. Climb to the top of your own sphere, turn on your own cameras, and start recording what's really happening. To truly understand why an object like 3I Atlas has moved from the pages of obscure astronomy journals to the center of a global controversy, we need to move beyond speculation and look at the hard evidence. We need to build the case, piece by piece, just as a prosecutor would in a courtroom. Avi Loeb has placed this object at a 4 out of 10 on his scale for potential technological origin. That's not a declaration of certainty, but it's a stunning admission from a mainstream physicist. It means the possibility cannot be dismissed without willfully ignoring a mountain of compounding, statistically improbable evidence. Let's examine the 8 specific anomalies that have earned this object that ranking. Each one, by itself, could be a fluke of nature, but together they weave a pattern that looks less like coincidence and more like intelligent design. Anomaly 1. Trajectory alignment. The object is approaching our solar system on a path tilted just 5 degrees from the ecliptic plane, the flat disk where all our planets orbit. For an object flung randomly from another star, the chances of aligning so perfectly with our planetary plane is about 0.2%, or 1 in 500. It's possible, but it's like throwing a dart from across a stadium and having it land almost perfectly flat on the bullseye. If, however, you were designing a survey mission, you wouldn't waste energy approaching from a steep angle. You would come in shallow, right along the ecliptic, to maximize your opportunities for planetary flybys. It's basic mission planning. Anomaly 2. Multiple planetary encounters. Set. This object's trajectory brings it unusually close to 3 different planets: Venus, Mars, and next year, a close flyby of Jupiter. The combined probability of a random object from interstellar space having a trajectory that allows for such a grand tour of 3 major bodies is staggeringly low, calculated at less than 0.005%, or 1 in 20,000. Natural objects don't target planets. They follow the random paths they were given. This trajectory, however, looks suspiciously like the efficient, multi-target flight paths that NASA designed for its Voyager probes. Anomaly 3. Solar conjunction timing. As we've discussed, its closest approach to the Sun happens to coincide with a period of minimal angular separation from our star, as seen from Earth. This is the very event that was used as the basis for the lie that it would be invisible. The timing of this convenient conjunction, which would have been the perfect time for a spacecraft to perform a fuel-efficient course correction maneuver, had a 7% chance of occurring randomly. Not impossible, but add it to the other low probabilities, and the chain of coincidences grows longer. Anomaly 4. The anti-tail. For months, this object displayed an extremely rare phenomenon: an anti-tail, a stream of material pointing towards the Sun, in defiance of the solar wind that should push everything away. While there are complex natural explanations involving the geometry of dust particles, there is another, simpler one. If the object were a spacecraft performing a braking maneuver to slow down as it entered our system, the thrust would be directed forward, creating the appearance of an anti-tail. The fact that this phenomenon ceased as the object got closer to the Sun is also consistent with the end of a deceleration burn. Anomaly. 5. Nickel without iron. Spectroscopy of the gas surrounding the object detected glowing nickel vapor. This is odd enough, as it requires high temperatures to vaporize nickel. But the truly strange part is the corresponding absence of iron. In every natural object we've ever studied, asteroids, meteorites, comets, nickel and iron are found together, like cosmic cousins. Finding one without the other is deeply strange. However, many advanced alloys used in spacecraft and high-tech components are nickel-based. Anomaly. 6. Extreme carbon dioxide dominance. The James Webb Space Telescope found that the object's composition is dominated by carbon dioxide ice, with an 8-to-1 ratio over water ice, the highest ever recorded. This suggests it formed in an extremely cold environment, far different from our own. But it's also consistent with an engineered object. Carbon dioxide is a highly efficient solid to sublimate for creating a visual cocoma, or for use in propulsion systems. It provides a powerful comet-like signature while being easier to store and manage than water. Anomaly. 7. Early activation. The object began outgassing, showing comet-like activity, when it was still farther out than Jupiter. Most comets from our solar system don't turn on until they are much closer to the Sun's warmth. This early activity suggests either the presence of super-volatile ices or a deliberate design to become visible and detectable early in its approach, ensuring it would be tracked. Anomaly. 8. Geometric emission patterns. Multiple observations have noted that the coma, the cloud of gas, and dust around the object is not a chaotic, random sphere. It shows signs of structure, symmetry, and patterns that are more consistent with controlled, directed jets than the random sublimation from an irregularly shaped, tumbling nucleus. Taken together, these 8 points form a compelling body of circumstantial evidence. This is the core lesson of this section: how to build a rational argument from incomplete data. In life, we are rarely handed a single, undeniable, smoking gun piece of evidence. Whether we are trying to understand a health issue, make a financial decision, or resolve a personal conflict, we must learn to be detectives. We have to gather all the disparate, seemingly unrelated data points, the anomalies, the coincidences, the patterns, and weigh them together. Don't dismiss the small inconsistencies. Instead, ask if they form a larger, coherent picture. This story is a masterclass in that process. It teaches us not to jump to conclusions, but to respect the weight of evidence, and to have the intellectual courage to consider a hypothesis, no matter how extraordinary, if it is the one that best explains all the facts. The evidence for an unexplained presence in our reality isn't confined to the cold, distant data from telescopes. It's also found in the hushed, often retaliated against testimony of credible human beings, people with decorated careers and top-secret clearances who have risked everything to speak the truth about what they've seen in our own skies. While astronomers debate the nature of 3I Atlas, a parallel and equally profound story is unfolding in the halls of the United States Congress, where military whistleblowers are finally being given a platform to tell their stories under oath. These are not wild-eyed conspiracy theorists. These are the trained observers we trust to fly our most advanced jets and monitor our most sensitive airspace. And their stories are chilling. Consider the testimony of Air Force veteran Dylan Bolin. In 2012, while working as a geospatial intelligence specialist at Langley Air Force Base, he stepped outside for a break and saw a silent, triangular craft hovering motionless directly overhead. As a trained observer, he knew what he was looking at was not a helicopter, not a jet. not a blimp. It was something that moved, or rather, didn't move, in a way that violated the known principles of aerodynamics and propulsion. He did his duty. He reported it through the proper channels, filing a detailed report. For over a decade, there was silence. Then, in 2023, he was interviewed by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, the Pentagon's new UAP investigation unit. After he recounted his story, they didn't just dismiss it as unidentified. They effectively told him it didn't happen, that his testimony didn't support his own sighting. The dismissal was followed by what he describes as systematic career retaliation, a blacklisting that made it impossible for him to continue his work in the intelligence community. The message was clear: see something, say something, and lose everything. This is not an isolated incident. During a congressional hearing, Representative Eric Burleson played what he stated was leaked, classified footage of an MQ-9 Reaper drone engaging an unidentified orb off the coast of Yemen. In the video, the drone fires a Hellfire missile, a weapon designed to destroy tanks, which scores a direct hit on the object. There is no explosion, no debris, no fragmentation. The orb simply absorbs the kinetic and explosive energy of the missile and continues on its path, completely unharmed. The question posed to the Pentagon was simple: what is this thing? If it's a weather balloon, show us the analysis. If it's advanced adversary technology from China or Russia that can withstand a Hellfire missile, that is a catastrophic intelligence failure that Congress needs to know about. And if it's something else, then the American people have a right to know. The response has been a wall of silence, citing the need to protect sources and methods. But what sources and methods are being protected by hiding the existence of an object that is apparently invulnerable to our advanced weaponry? These stories, along with the now famous Tic Tac and Ad Gimbal videos from Navy pilots, paint a disturbing picture of a two-tiered reality. There is the reality we are allowed to see, and then there is the reality that our most trusted military personnel are encountering an experience so far outside the official narrative that they are silenced and punished for speaking about it. The official explanation from ARO is that, to date, they have found no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial technology. This carefully worded statement is a masterclass in institutional deflection. It doesn't say such technology doesn't exist. It says they haven't found evidence they are willing to verify and make public. This system creates a horrifying catch-22 for witnesses. If you stay silent, the truth remains hidden. If you speak out through official channels, your report is buried and your career is destroyed. And if you go public, you are branded a liar or a fool. It is a system perfectly designed to enforce silence. The profound and deeply human lesson here is about the nature of courage and the importance of listening to marginalized voices. Throughout history, progress has often been driven by whistleblowers, by the people who had the courage to speak an inconvenient truth to a powerful institution, whether it was about corporate malfeasance, government overreach, or scientific dogma. These soldiers are modern-day Galileos, punished for reporting what they saw with their own eyes. This story asks us to consider, in our own lives, who are the whistleblowers we are ignoring? It could be a coworker trying to raise concerns about an unethical practice, a family member trying to talk about a difficult truth we don't want to hear, or a community member pointing out an injustice we find it easier to ignore. The path of least resistance is to side with the institution, to accept the official denial. The path of courage is to listen, to amplify their voices, and to demand accountability. Because a system that silences its most credible observers is a system that is terrified of the truth. Perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of the entire 3i Atlas saga is that, in the grand scheme of things, it might not even be the strangest thing happening in the cosmos right now. While we have been fixated on this single anomalous visitor, the James Webb Space Telescope has been fundamentally rewriting our understanding of the universe itself, revealing a reality that is far more mysterious, chaotic, and magnificent than we ever imagined. The discoveries it's making serve as a crucial piece of context, a cosmic reminder that our assumptions about what is natural or possible are built on a very limited set of data. Just in the last few weeks, astronomers analyzing Webb's deep field images have identified over 300 candidate galaxies in the early universe, just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, that are far too large, bright, and mature to exist according to our standard models of galaxy formation. These models say that galaxies should build up slowly, like cosmic snowballs, over billions of years. Yet Webb is finding fully formed luminous galaxies in an era when they should have been little more than faint, struggling proto-galaxies. It's like finding a fully grown oak tree in a tray of freshly sprouted seeds. It breaks the timeline. This isn't just a minor tweak to the theory, it's a fundamental challenge. It suggests that either the universe aged much faster than we thought, or there are processes at play in the early cosmos, perhaps related to the nature of dark matter or the efficiency of star formation, that we don't even have the physics to describe yet. And it's not just the grand scale of galaxies. Webb is also revealing unexpected structure on the smallest of scales. It captured an image of the light echo from a 350-year-old supernova explosion illuminating interstellar dust clouds. And the detail is breathtaking. The dust isn't a random amorphous fog. It's organized into intricate sheets, filaments, knots, and whirls that look almost biological, like the grain in a piece of polished wood. This suggests that powerful, unseen forces, likely magnetic fields, are sculpting the very fabric of the interstellar medium, creating an architecture in the void that we never knew existed. And beyond that, Webb is finding the chemical building blocks of life, potential biosignatures like dimethyl sulfide in the atmospheres of exoplanets hundreds of light years away. We are on the cusp of being able to detect the chemical fingerprints of life on other worlds. So, what does this have to do with 3i Atlas? Everything. We are living through a revolution in consciousness. For centuries, our worldview was built on a model of a predictable, orderly clockwork universe that operated according to a set of well-understood laws. Webb is showing us that the universe is not a quiet library. It's a chaotic, vibrant, and surprising jungle, filled with things that shouldn't exist according to our old maps. In this context, the arrival of an interstellar object that defies easy explanation feels less like an anomaly and more like a part of the new normal. If our most fundamental theories about how galaxies form are proving to be incomplete, why should we be so certain that our theories about what travels between the stars are correct? If the universe is capable of creating impossibly massive galaxies in its infancy, why would the idea of it creating technological civilizations be so far-fetched? The deepest lesson here is one of intellectual humility. The discoveries from the Webb telescope are a powerful antidote to our human tendency towards arrogance and certainty. We think we have it all figured out, and then the universe shows us a picture that reveals how little we truly know. This is a vital principle to apply in our own lives. We often operate from a place of certainty, clinging to our beliefs, our opinions, and our plans as if they are infallible. This story reminds us to hold our certainties lightly. Be open to the idea that your model of your career, your relationships, or your own potential might be just as incomplete as our old models of the universe. Be willing to be surprised. Be willing to be proven wrong. True wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about being perpetually in awe of the depth of the mystery, and having the humility to admit that the most exciting discoveries are the ones that shatter our assumptions and force us to draw a new map of reality. And so all the threads of this incredible story, the official lie, the anomalous evidence, the Cold War ghost in our orbit, the new eyes in Las Vegas, the testimony of silenced soldiers, and the backdrop of a newly mysterious universe, all converge on a single point in time. Tomorrow morning, 11:36, Universal Time. The moment of perihelion. The moment we were told we couldn't see, but now we know we can. This isn't an end. It's a beginning. It is the start of the most intense, multi-platform observation campaign of an interstellar object in human history. And whatever happens, the truth will not be contained. In the days and months to come, a fleet of our own technological emissaries will be watching. In November, the European Space Agency's JUICE probe, on its way to Jupiter, will pass close enough to 3I Atlas to characterize it with its powerful suite of instruments. In December, the object will make its closest, though still distant, approach to Earth, finally free from the sun's glare, allowing every telescope on the planet to get a clear, unobstructed view. And then, in March 2026, the real show may begin. The object will pass by Jupiter, where NASA's Juno spacecraft is waiting. Juno's mission is not just to take pictures, but to listen. It will use its WAVES instrument to scan for any radio emissions coming from the object. This is a direct test of the technological hypothesis. If Juno detects a structured, intelligently modulated signal, the debate is over. And in a twist that feels almost scripted, the object's trajectory traces back to the same region of the sky where, in 1977, we received the famous "wow" signal, a powerful, anomalous, and never-repeated radio transmission that remains our most tantalizing hint of another intelligence in the cosmos. Is it possible that the "wow" signal was a call, and 3I Atlas, arriving 48 years later, is the follow-up visit? This brings us to the final, most profound question that this entire saga forces us to confront. What does it mean to be human in a universe that may be watching us? For all of our history, we have been the sole observers, the only intelligence we knew of, looking out into a silent cosmos. This story suggests that the roles may be reversing, or perhaps they were never what we thought they were. The possibility that 2025 PN7 is an ancient monitoring probe, that 3I Atlas is a visiting scout, and that the UAP our pilots are encountering are local surveillance drones, all points toward a single, paradigm-shattering conclusion. Earth is interesting. We are of interest to someone else. We are no longer just the watchers. We are also the watched. This is the ultimate lesson, the one that transcends science and touches the very core of our identity. For so long, we have defined ourselves by what separates us, our nations, our cultures, our beliefs. But the possibility of an observer, a non-human other, forces us to see ourselves through a different lens. Through their eyes, we are not Americans or Russians, Christians or Muslims, rich or poor. We are simply humanity, one species on one planet, sharing one interconnected destiny. The presence of a watcher forces us to confront our own behavior. How do we want to be seen? As a fractured, warring species, squandering our beautiful world, or as a young, maturing intelligence, capable of wisdom, compassion, and unity? The advice from this incredible story is not to simply look up at the sky, but to also look inward and to look at each other. The real first contact that needs to happen is not with an alien civilization, but with ourselves. We need to make contact with our shared humanity, with our collective responsibility for this planet and for each other. We need to become a species that, if we are indeed being watched, we can be proud of. Whatever happens tomorrow, whether 3I Atlas proves to be a simple comet or something far more extraordinary, the questions it has raised will remain. It has forced us to question our authorities, to recognize patterns, to confront uncomfortable truths, to build our own tools for seeing, to weigh evidence, to listen to the silenced, and to stand in humility before the vastness of the unknown. It has, in short, given us a new way to see. So I ask you, what do you think is happening up there? Where are you listening from? And will you be watching the sky tomorrow? More importantly, how does this story change the way you see our world and our place within it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community of curious minds, dedicated not to a single belief, but to the shared, courageous act of asking the big questions. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this journey. Whatever the coming days may bring, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Your health and well-being are what truly matter. And if this story matters to you, if you want to stay informed and continue exploring these profound mysteries together, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.